Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Nerding Out with Jake. This is a one of six part series covering my painting and building of the Finnish T-34-85. First things first, we tackle the retro kit T-34-85 conversion kit, which adds very nicely on to the Mang World War II Toons kit for the T-34-76. Working on the conversion kit was actually pretty easy. RetroKit is very good about making these kits easy to work on, and the biggest thing was just drilling out the barrel. After the barrel was all drilled out, I took some CA and applied that within the cavity that was left there and put the barrel in place, and I was set to go. After that, I had some fun adding some grab bars by taking some paper clips, drilling the holes, cutting them to the right size, and then putting them in the holes and securing them. Once the handles were in place, I took a ceramic shaving tool and actually scored the fenders off to replicate the way the Finns would actually do it when they'd acquire one of these tanks. And after that, I had a little bit of fun adding a little bit of texture with AK Interactive's Easy Cast texture paste and stippling it on the turret. I wanted to really emphasize the cast turret texture feeling that the real tanks have in life. It's a very distinct feature of these tanks, and I thought it'd be a great way to really bring some character to this model kit. After that, it was time to prime. The way I go about my priming process is to take several very light passes of primer and slowly build up that nice layer of primer coating around the model, so I'm not actually obscuring detail as I go. You can always add more paints, you can't take it off, but this is only going to provide a very base layer for the paint to grip onto. So I took my time doing this, and I let it sit for about a day or so after I was done, just so it had time to cure and completely adhere to the model. Now it's time to move on to actually adding the base coat paints for the model. You'll see I go with Russian green, intermediate green, and a very light grass green. I know the grass green looks a little too extreme, but don't worry. Once you have all the colors in place, and then you go on later on to add the oils, washes, filters, weathering effects, it all blends wonderfully together. It doesn't look too stark at all, but you're always able to go from a stark looking tank and mellow it out quite a bit with your effects later down the road. This is a great piece to show the or to actually showcase the abilities of the new Generation 3 paint by AK. I've tried them out before. I did a couple demonstrations of them previously, but this project was a great way to show just how versatile these paints are. They went through my new Hydro CMake very nicely. They performed great. There was no tip dry. I had a blast using them. They thinned down incredibly well for the airbrush. I had no complaints at all while working with these new paints. And as you can see here, I'm just slowly taking my time adding up the highlights as I go along. I never let the paint fully pool on the model, I just let it get wet, and then I go on to the next part and let it dry. You'll know and learn, if you haven't already, that acrylic paint looks a lot brighter before it dries, and then after it dries it mellows out quite a bit. So you can actually add on several layers of highlight colors before it really starts to look like it's getting too extreme. And here comes that incredibly bright grass green color. And as you can see, it looks pretty bright when I put it on, but as it dries, it has that nice mellowing feature. I actually will do several passes with this color over the key details of the turret and then different parts of the hull itself, and then I'll actually start to build it up over time. But like I said, I could really go back over this several times to really build that effect up. You really can't go wrong using these thin layers of paint because you can always add more. And as you can see in this step, I'm simply taking my mixture of the two highlight colors and just blending it out even further on the tank. I wasn't too satisfied the way that it came out prior to this, but I thought, well, I can always push it more and more as I go. And I was really happy with that decision because I was actually really able to create more contrast by pushing this color out there. Once the airbrushing portion was done, it was time for me to get out the same paints and then create accents on the paint. I will say right now, the true shades of colors that I'm using aren't really that important because I'm just looking to create some different spots of interest along the tank. Yeah, I use some lighter colors and such, but I also use a little bit of red in there too, just to create little areas that add a little pop to the tank turret and even to the hull of the tank. So you'll just see me just switch my colors around. There's no real ratio of what how much green or how much red or how much the pale color is in there. I just wing it. And if you ever look at tank pictures online, you'll notice that there's different portions of the tank that have weathered differently or have been bleached by the sun differently. So that's the effect I'm trying to create right here. Just have fun with it, and if you mess up, hey, just go back over with a little bit of the green paint, and you're good to go. One thing you will notice is that a lot of these colors look really extreme before they dry, but as I said earlier, they do mellow out quite a bit. And they will mellow out as you add more weathering effects. So again, go crazy this part if you want to. Add some contrast, add some different shades, different tones. Hey, knock yourself out. It'll all work out in the end. And if it does really look bad, you can always go back over and do it again. Well, that's all for this episode. Thanks for checking in on my very first episode of my Nerding Out with Jake. This is one of six. If you want to see the new episodes coming up after this, where I tackle more of the different details and features of this tank, please hit up the YouTube channel here, like and subscribe. Also, hit up the Michigan Toy Soldier blog, and have a great day. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great one.